Hello, and welcome to Socially Holistic Podcast. Socially Holistic helps coaches and holistic entrepreneurs and women in heart-centered businesses make sense of social media so they can build their own online network and get more clients. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a 5-star review of this podcast. Please leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more heart-centered businesses will be successful. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Socially Holistic Podcast, episode 70. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with today's special guest, Amanda Berlin. Amanda is a communications specialist and content strategist who works with coaches and mindful entrepreneurs to help them find their voice, create systems for writing great content, and connect with their target audience in a completely authentic and stress-free way. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
So why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and your business journey? You've got a very fascinating background in PR.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I started out in public relations. For over a decade, I had this journey through the world of corporate PR, but even more interesting than that, I found it more interesting. I worked with a lot of celebrities and television stations, helping them to secure interviews to promote whatever content it was that they were at the time, whatever their projects were. Mm-hmm. And that sort of led me, that niche of PR in terms of getting clients television and radio coverage really led me throughout my PR career. So in my most recent corporate job, I was the editorial director at a niche PR firm where our clients like Disney, like Johnson & Johnson, anything from a pharmaceutical company to a consumer products company to an entertainment company would come to us with a spokesperson who they've hired. They would say, here's who we hired. Here's our message, that the message that we hired this person to deliver. Here, Amanda, create a story to pitch to the media that would make them interested in our product or whatever. So I was tasked with taking a spokesperson and a message and making it palatable to the media. And as I said, I was working with a lot of big companies, and it sort of started to feel a little bit soulless to me. I began to get really frustrated and feeling like I wasn't making the world a better place. I was just helping big companies get bigger, and the culture at the company where I worked was not really agreeing with me. So I was determined to kind of take a little bit of a detour and do something that was going to feed my soul a little bit more. So I enrolled in life coach training. And in the midst of all of that, it became apparent to me in retrospect that the job that I was in was really a petri dish for my own spiritual and personal growth, as many of these trying circumstances tend to be. Yes. Of course, you don't realize it at the time, but looking back, I learned a lot of tactics to really sort of pull myself through and be better in those kind of situations. So throughout all of that, as I was kind of waiting for the life coach training to start, I was unknowingly sort of releasing this job. And 2 months before my life coach training started, I actually got laid off, let go from the job, because they were downsizing. And it was sort of this moment of like, okay, this is what's supposed to happen here. And I did my life coach training, and ultimately I realized that I could meld my two expertise, teaching entrepreneurs to create their own stories, again, taking a spokesperson themselves and their message and getting that story out to a wider audience.
Excellent. I love that. And you kind of moved from entertainment celebrities and big corporations to working with business celebrities, even if they're kind of small business celebrities.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's really the truth of it, is that you have to think of yourself as a celebrity. You have to sort of put yourself out there with the intention of like, look, I have an expertise here that deserves recognition. I know I can help people if I can just get my message into their ears.
Exactly. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome when building your business?
That really does dovetail with this sort of journey that I went on as I was transitioning from the corporate world into my own entrepreneurial endeavors. I really wanted to get away from communications. I was like, I hate this. I don't care if I ever do this again. Get me out of here. I'm going to be a life coach. And you all can just suck it. And I just was, I never talk like that, but it just came out. I was feeling really kind of resentful and I really wanted out and I just wanted to, be a life coach and help people and, do something that was, a little bit more, I don't know, like soul-centered and flowery than where I am now. That's sort of what I was thinking. My motivation was wrong. I was kind of like running towards something to get away from something else. And once I became really honest, and so I guess the challenge was that was the challenge. I wasn't clear. I didn't have a clear vision. I just knew what I didn't want to do. And once I realized that I could meld my two expertise and I didn't actually hate communications. In fact, I actually really loved it. It was just, I was doing it for the wrong people. And for me, that was when the shift happened.
So that was kind of a tipping point for your business.
Absolutely. 100%.
Fantastic. So how has your business evolved since you got clear on your business niche and who it is that you help and how you help them?
It's been a complete it was basically like I was trying to run up a water slide before. And then once I realized this, I was like, oh, actually I could sit on this thing and just coast on down. And that was really kind of that's how I feel now. I feel like I'm supported. I'm in the flow. I just can let go and let my, what I know I can do and what I know I can deliver just kind of speak through me.
Excellent. Flow is always a good thing to have.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It really is, because without it, everything feel like I just end up crying in my keyboard. It's so frustrating when you're not flowing.
Exactly. Now, I love how you have blended together your life coaching experience with your previous corporate experience, or the skills that you learned in your previous corporate experience, into something completely new and unique. So on your website, you talk about how it's important to never leave your past behind when you're telling your story. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that so many of us are out there. We want to do good in the world. We want to put something valuable out there, and we know we can help people. We just have trouble communicating why we are different than the next person who wants to be of service, wants to help people. And to me, the essential factor in distinguishing yourself is your past. And it's not just like, oh, we all come from unique places, which is true. And one reason why you should never leave your past behind. But the other reason is that there is a series of events. There's something that has happened in your life that has made you perfect for what you're doing. So that is the true reason why I feel like you should never leave your past behind, is because you're doing what you're doing for a reason, and because I hate to say you were born to do this, but I think a lot of us do feel this way, and a lot of us feel very aligned in the work that we're doing, and we just need to communicate why we feel we are perfect, why others can believe we are perfect for what we're doing.
I love that. So how can you tap into your own unique story and your business's unique story?
Oh, that's a really good question. I always say mine your personal story and spin your experience. So by mine your personal story, I mean, really take a look at all the things you've done in your life, whether it's like you're the oldest sibling, so you're a natural nurturer, or you were a camp counselor for umpteen years as a coming up as a kid, or, you had to take care of a sick relative, or whatever it is, especially if we're talking to life coaches here, like what makes you kind of this nurturing, soulful spirit? And then also spin your experience. So, there are things that you've done in your life that maybe don't obviously feed into what you're doing today, but can you sort of take different perspectives on what you've done in the past and create a story, not even like, a made up, certainly not a made up story, but create a narrative around your experience that sort of highlights the things that are aligned with what you're doing today, that show, that spin your experience in a way that supports what you're doing today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. Definitely.
Great.
Yeah. So what does it take to really connect with your audience? When you're writing your about page or whether you're blogging, how do you help people connect with you and really get a feel for who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I think there are two things to really, there are probably more than two, but two things come to mind immediately for me. The first is show your prospect, your reader, that you know them. So, and that doesn't mean being manipulative or being like, I've got you all figured out. It really means connecting with who you are in a way that says like, look, I have been there. I have done this. I know how you feel. So really making that emotional connection and fostering a relationship. That's really, in my message is really a lot about creating relationships through content. And that's why I think that storytelling is so important, because that's how we as a society communicate through our stories. I mean, even dating back to, the oldest recorded religions, it's all stories. I hope that's not a controversial thing to say. But.
No, totally not.
So the way to connect through content is by letting your reader know that you understand them, that you are empathetic, that you get where they are, you understand what they really want, because that's who you are as well. I think a lot of us end up working with people who we are teaching now what we also need to learn. So there's this sort of symbiotic relationship between us and our clients. So letting them know that you get them, that you're empathetic. And then the other thing is, as I was saying, really speaking in narrative and making it like that's something that's fun to read. And also not, here's a third. I said two before, but I have a third one that just came to mind. And I know that everyone says this, it's almost like an eye roller, but write as you speak, because that's how you're going to sound like a human. That's how you're going to sound like you. You don't have to. I actually remember when I was first starting out in PR, and I was tasked with writing a press release for something. And I handed this press release in, and it left no noun unmodified. Everything was like, I tried to use as many like $3 words or $1 million words as I could. And my boss had to come back to me and be like, this needs to be a little less flowery. And I was like, I was, of course, like, deeply offended by the criticism, heartbroken, but it sort of was a wake-up call to me that, just because you're using a ton of adjectives and big words, it doesn't make the writing better. Clear is always better. Clear is better than clever.
Ooh, I like that. Excellent. Really, really good tips. And I think a lot of people, especially people that are new to blogging and new to online business, really, really struggle with finding their voice and figuring out how the heck to write and express what it is they want to express.
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to say that inspiration can come from anywhere. So in speaking to what to write, I found this also as a writer coming up, because I also dabbled in fiction for a number of years. And there was always this archetype of the writer who, sits holed up in her attic and, doesn't see the light of day, kind of like this Virginia Woolf kind of character. And it's really a misnomer, I think, because I think that you need to be out there in the world having experiences in order to have anything to write about.
Yeah, especially if you're going to be blogging or creating videos or some type of regular content, you really need to have kind of material for that content that you're creating, because if you just sit in your office all day,
exactly,
you're kind of cutting yourself off from the world.
Yeah.
So another thing that you talk a lot about on your website is how important the about page is for your website. Because that's one of the most visited pages on your website. So what do you think are the biggest mistakes that you see people making on their about page? Or biggest things that could be improved?
I just wanted to get a reference out that I use in a course that I'm developing called Create Content That Connects. And it's a worksheet on composing your about page.
Ooh.
So yeah, I think some of the biggest mistakes we make, particularly when we talk about ourselves, is that, and this is so hard, especially for coaches, I think we end up, talking in jargon a lot of the time. If I the word purpose to me has kind of lost its mojo a little bit. I think that, really neglecting to really, as I said before, really connect with what your ideal client is experiencing. I think that, that is a way that we can get super specific. I think that's really important in and of itself, being super specific. That's a way that we can get super specific in a way that's relevant to our reader. And, along the lines of being specific, even when you're talking about your own past, your own experience, getting specific about where you came from gives people a lot to identify with. It's really a gift that you give people when you're specific. So I think if you say like, oh, I spent 5 years in the corporate world, and then I went on a retreat and it changed my life, I think that's too vague. And if you were to say something like, I spent 5 years as a paralegal working for lawyers who did blah, blah, practice this kind of law, it really paints a much better picture, a much more compelling picture of who you were, what happened to you that caused you to have this epiphany that brings you to do the work that you're doing today. And then, what transformed you and leads you to where you are.
Excellent.
And I think that's a good, that's a good like three-pronged approach, if as a very sort of like broad sketch of an about page, is to talk about your before, your epiphany, and your after.
Oh, I love that. That is excellent, excellent advice. And I think I really want to call out what you said about painting a picture. Because, of course, when we read fiction, the fiction author is not just saying, oh, well, she did this, she did that. She's really painting a picture of what this character did. And that's the same kind of thing that we need to do with our about page.
Yeah, exactly. And you're the character. You're the main character.
Yes.
And you know what I think is so fun? If people are interested in getting a little bit creative and stepping outside their comfort zone, is thinking about dialogue and all elements of fiction, really, but dialogue in anything that you're doing online, whether you're writing a blog post or you're writing your about page or anything, you really could inject a lot of personality with that kind of writing. Also, elements of fiction that can be relevant are like scene setting, also, character development. So, what is thinking about I guess, when you think about who your ideal client is, you're kind of developing a character.
Yeah.
So, and also thinking about yourself as a character and, putting yourself in a time and in a place and in a certain style. These are all things that will make you stand out, make you unique.
Now, do you find that a lot of people kind of play small on their about page and they're afraid to really just put it all out there and shine?
That's a really good question for me in particular, because it's funny. I mentioned I developed this copywriting course and I'm working with a web developer to help me implement it on the technological side. And I told her I sort of got a little indignant about it. I was like, but I am different than other communication strategists out there. I have this experience in corporate PR where I worked with these huge brands and basically strategized their entire electronic publicity strategy. And she was like, I didn't know that. And it was such a light bulb moment for me, because I was like, I think that everyone needs to know that. it's really important that, and the fact that I was sort of holding back on that was like, oh my goodness, what am I, why am I holding back on that? Like I needed to get a little bit angry about it and be like, this is what I've done, people.
That is excellent.
So yes, I think that we do hold back. And I think that we sometimes also don't have the perspective that we need on occasion to really say like, this is a really marketable and valuable expertise that you have accumulated over the years. So, you got to talk about it. You got to put it out there.
Yeah. Because if it's sitting in your head, no one else is going to have access to it.
Yeah, no one has access to it. And right, sometimes I think that for me, I either didn't realize that I hadn't written that, or I didn't think that, or I think I was actually still in that mindset that I described earlier where I wanted to leave it behind, even though I was, I have a very clear vision now of wanting to meld those two expertise. I think that there was a piece of me that was still like, didn't want to talk about it.
That is so fascinating because my previous business experience, I kind of went through the same thing as well. I'm still kind of trying to come back and re-embrace all of my previous experience.
And what was your previous experience?
In the hospitality industry, it was my own business with a business partner, but a lot of it was just not very aligned with my values. And same kind of thing that you talked about, working kind of against what was important to me.
Right.
So I learned so much, valuable marketing and business experience, but there's so many parts of it that just kind of make me cringe. And so it's like, it's kind of like a love-hate experience with my experience. And it's so important. And I really do struggle kind of bringing that to the table, even though I know so much of who I am today was from that business, which was, 10 and a half years. So.
Right. Yeah, I know. I totally get that. Obviously, you could tell I totally get that. And I think that, part of also what I encourage the women that I work with to do is to honor their experience as part of their history. And by going back to that, spin your experience and mine your personal history, it really is, you have to sort of enter into that with that idea of I'm going to honor this as opposed to cringe about it.
Yes.
I totally get it though.
It's about kind of digging into the crap and picking out the pieces that really are, that are really important and useful.
Right. Yeah.
But you've got to delve into the stuff before you can get to, the good bits.
Exactly.
So, Amanda, tell us a little bit more about this program, Create Content That Connects.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a full copywriting tutorial that takes you through your about page, mining your experience and mining your personal experience and spinning your professional experience. It's also about creating a suite of services. So that was something that I really struggled with in the beginning as a life coach, describing what I do. And I think that is super important that we really quantify what we do as opposed to sort of leading people to these vague assertions of, oh yes, we coach for an hour every other week and you find your purpose and you align with your dreams and you remove blocks and you take action. It's much more than that. And what you deliver as a coach is profound and personal. So it's really talking about how to quantify what you do in real and practical terms so that and the real purpose behind that is not only to show your prospects what they get when they work with you, which is really important, but it's also to make you really excited about pitching your services, which I think is really important. And then we go from there into positioning yourself as a thought leader, which is sort of what I was explaining before about being a spokesperson for your own brand. All of us that venture to blog are positioning ourselves as thought leaders. And it's really about creating that cache of ideas. And not only that, but taking those ideas and making them super specific to your audience. Because if it's again, the idea of specificity here, but if it's an idea that doesn't have a hook that draws in your particular ideal person, your woman, then it's not doing its job, and it's kind of, a waste of time and space on your site. So you really want to write articles that have a particular tone, so that they act as true marketing pieces and as well as providing valuable insight and serviceable content to your audience. So it's really about creating that kind of content. It's about it's about codifying your writing routine and making it, because I get a lot of people that are like, I just really hate writing. And I just want to say, you don't hate it. You just haven't figured out how to do it, so it's not like torture. It's like, for me, I always used to say, and I still say it, but I actually have come around to the fact that I don't actually hate math. I figured out a way to do practical math in a way that's kind of like a little bit more exciting and works for me. Like, I could figure out a tip like no one's business. And that's really what you can do the same thing for writing. You just have to figure out how to make it work for you, your time, your style, and your business. So there's a section on how to create a writing routine and make it feel like, it's manageable. And then I think, one of the most exciting things is not just about how all of this content then resides on your site, but really how to get it out there into the world. So we talk about newsletter strategy and a little bit of social media strategy, focusing more on the content as opposed to, when to post, where to post, and so on, mm-hmm. but really what kind of stuff to post. And there's a whole bonus tutorial on guest posting, how to pitch yourself to other websites and how to create ideas that serve other people's visions for their content. We also have a module on creating the copy on your site that no one actually reads. The privacy statement and the terms of service and the broken link page when people hit a URL that's misspelled or a broken link, how to make that actually useful to them when they get to that page, and how to keep them on your site if they do encounter that, and how to write call to action buttons, which I think people don't pay a lot of attention to. I know I didn't really until it sort of became apparent that that's a valuable content that you can make a difference on your site.
Excellent. Sounds really, really good.
Thank you.
So you have a couple of other ways of working with people as well. You do one-to-one communication training, and you also have a media maven expert training.
Yeah. I get so excited about that. That actually, it's so funny that I get so excited about that, because that's exactly what I was doing in my old job. And I actually partner with an old colleague on that service because she has excellent brand relationships. So one of the things that we do with that service is that we help you figure out if you want to take your business in the direction of, product endorsements or, those kind of aligned interactions where you build brand relationships with companies, and you become an affiliate or you become a spokesperson. We can provide you with that kind of training, and we help you figure out exactly what you need in order to, kind of approach. Like, let's say you're a health coach and you really want to align with this, cleanse company that you really love. So what do you need in order to approach them as, a potential spokesperson? You need a media kit. You know how to position yourself as an expert. You need to know how to appear on camera and how to do great interviews. You may need someone to facilitate that relationship. And I have a partner in this offering who has tremendous brand relationships and is really tenacious and savvy. And she is all about aligning corporations with the appropriate spokespeople. So that's where I work with her.
Oh, that sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Excellent. So Amanda, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
Yes, absolutely. I love this question. I know that people mention Marie Forleo all the time. I love her. I think she's so stylish and savvy and smart and down to earth. So I'm definitely a follower of hers. I know you recently had Stacey Harris on the show. I love her. She's just brimming with enthusiasm and personality, and I love listening to her. I was on her show a couple months back, and I just adore her. I live in New York City, so I have a huge community of female entrepreneurs here that have sort of arisen from, different communities that I've been a part of through my fitness community and my spiritual community. And so Gabrielle Bernstein is one of them. Right now she's, a best-selling author and kind of like this worldwide, spiritual guru. But I started in her group coaching program when she had like 10 people in the back of this Buddhist temple in the East Village down here in Manhattan. So I've been a follower of hers for a really long time. And she also has a PR background. So I really admire her savvy in bringing her message to so many people using that skill. There's a life coach named Anna Goldstein who also is a personal friend. And she found a way to get herself as the top Google search of life coach NY.
Wow.
New York. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I love her is not because she, is the top referenced Google result, but she's so resourceful and figures out how to do these things. She has, this background as an athlete and as a real seeker, in my opinion. And I find that so inspiring because I also, the technical stuff when it comes to business, I get very overwhelmed. So when someone can figure out how to make it work and, is just determined to figure it out themselves, I find that so inspiring. I also really love what Nikki Elledge Brown is putting out. She's another copywriting guru. And I think her site is just completely adorable and just thematically, it all is perfect. It's just a wonderful, beautiful website with a great style and great advice. And finally, I have a couple women that I meet with regularly to talk about business, kind of like my mini mastermind. And they are my soul sisters and my business lifeblood. And they just inspire me and keep me motivated. And their names are Laura Yamin. She helps women break their people-pleasing habits and get out of careers that they are not happy in. And Jill Palmer has a holistic skincare business called Heal Your Face with Food. And I just adore them, and also very savvy and resourceful women.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all those women.
Sure.
So Amanda, where can people find you online?
Well, they can find my website is amandaberlin.com, and my last name is Berlin, just like the city. And you can find information on my course in copywriting at createcontentthatconnects.com. That's the name of the course, Create Content That Connects.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit sociallyholistic.com/SHP70 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Socially Holistic Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. Please help us help more women in business by giving us a 5-star review of this podcast. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more successful businesses there will be. So please leave a 5-star review today over at iTunes. Thank you.